Welcome to the Forward Miami Show. My name is Damian Pardo, and I'm your host. If you don't know what Forward Miami is, Forward Miami produces the Gay Ocho Festival. It completely works on diversity and inclusion all year round. So we like to say that if Miami is this big, diverse salad, Forward Miami tries to be the salad bowl. And I am very pleased and honored to have with me as my guest today, the famous, needs really no introduction, George Neary, who is a friend and a community activist, lifelong community activist. And if you've never sat down to talk with George outside of this interview, you really need to, because he's just a wealth of information and a wealth of Miami information.
Well, thank you so much. I'd like to start with, as you mentioned, Forward Miami, which is a young festival. It's only 4 years old. Is that right? Five years old. And I just am so proud of you and the community, because you shot a lot of myths that Cayocho and the Hispanic community would not be welcoming to inclusion and diversity, and the very opposite has happened. Events and it's been amazing and welcoming, and and actually people say that all the time, but it gets better every year. This year there were a lot more booths and a lot more things to purchase. Obviously the food is always there, which is just delicious and wonderful, but everyone in the community comes out and welcomes everybody. You would never think that there was ever a question about that neighborhood. So you have really given a voice to people where there was negativity and the thought of exclusion, but no, it's been the actual opposite. And I just want to salute you and the volunteers who make it so wonderful and so welcoming and so joyous. And, you know, you have all these events and performers, and it's really a quality inclusion and diversity. And I love going every year.
No, that's wonderful. And really, I have to thank our board and volunteers and all the merchants on the street and so many people that really get into it and just
they do.
And they do. And they make it home for everyone for that day.
Yeah.
And, you know, you said something, you kind of broke down some myths. And I think that's so important in Miami.
Yes.
Especially for Miamians. We know what the myths are.
Right.
We know, I always knew that was a myth, and it annoyed the hell out of me because I'm Hispanic, Cuban, Latino. And I'm like, this is not true. This is not who we are. This is not where we come from. And I think it's awesome that the Hispanic Latino community takes the leadership role in trying to talk about diversity and inclusion.
No, exactly. And make it fun.
And make it fun.
You know, you have so many performers from the entertainment world who love to come and celebrate diversity and inclusion and their community. And, you know, it's just a joyous moment. So I just want to support you and, again, the board and volunteers, because I know I've done many festivals and the work that I've done in the past. And I know how hard it is. I know what it takes, door to door, getting people signing up, insurance, a million issues. And you handle them all so beautifully and joyously that it makes people come back every year and experience even more of the community. So it's, you know, I salute you again and the board and volunteers.
Thank you. Thank you. And I wish that just like that myth, a lot of those other myths that are around, you know, start crumbling down, because you know, I always say that I feel like a lot of it is created by just having two political parties or two primary voices that always kind of feed their base in a certain direction and help in some ways create certain myths about certain communities and certain people. And, you know, it's just human nature. We're biased people. And the only way you counteract that is with you, me, and people talking to each other.
Exactly. And confronting in a good way. Having conversations, talking about this beautiful event, and people are, you know, more and more people attend because they get an opportunity to see how wonderful it is, and they love participating. And of course, even without the festival, you have music and food, and normally in Little Havana. So you add all these other wonderful elements, and it's a great opportunity for the community to participate and really enjoy a beautiful weekend of events. And in addition, I have to also say the board and volunteers really salute a lot of activists in Latin America, different countries where they're fighting for their rights and fighting for inclusion. So it was very inspiring, you know, this event.
I mean, this year the theme was liberty, and it was really focusing on the voices inside Cuba, Nicaragua, and Venezuela, you know, trying to amplify the messages about communism, which are largely poo-pooed by many, politicos or by the systems, here. So it's interesting. If you don't understand those things, you can't understand the perspective that people are living.
Exactly.
And that's really, really important. We try to, every year we pick a theme. In the past, we've had gun violence as a very large community issue. We've had climate, we've had gentrification, and we try to weave that through the entire festival. So we'll have factoids on the screens that give little factoids. One year it was immigration. So we really try to pick an issue and have people that come to have fun, maybe just indirectly.
And learn a little.
Right. Maybe indirectly learn a little.
No, it's true. And you have a big gala this year. It was at the Biltmore, which was lovely. And I heard from young people who I never heard of or never knew, who were so inspiring and electrifying, talking about these very issues from their country perspective, be it Cuba, Nicaragua, or wherever, of Venezuela, and really highlighting things that most of us, we don't get the paper anymore. So that's one step away from kind of reading, not that the paper is always right, but, without some of these tools, all that stuff is further away from you. And so it was really good.
And we were just talking before the show started how, unfortunately, we need more and more of that, because through these programs, we build a stronger base. And I really believe the far majority of people are fair-minded, good people,
exactly.
Trying to live their life in a healthy way. And unfortunately, we're talking about some of the hate crimes that are still happening.
Exactly.
I know you wanted to mention one in specific.
Right.
That just happened.
It just happened, and it's just so tragic. We have an artist named Naja Moon, a Black gay artist, and she did a beautiful piece called Your Mama's Voice. And it was just beautiful, colorful, all rainbow colors. And it had recordings. You could press a button and out would come different voices talking about, their situation where they lived. And it was in front of the Bass Museum in Miami Beach. And at first it had been defaced with slurs, anti-gay, homophobic, and all kinds of nasty remarks written on the piece. And then when it was cleaned up and organized and put back, then it was completely destroyed. So it's really shocking that in this day and age, as we say, that those kinds of things have happened. And the Bass Museum reacted quickly. And there was an article in the Miami Herald written by the chairman of the board, George Lindemann, discussing, hate crimes and this damage and this homophobia and this anti-Black and, anti-woman. It was just so many things that were just so shocking.
Well, we see the anti-Semitism.
Right.
Sometimes, we see anti-Cuban, anti-this, anti-that, anti-whatever. There's plenty of anti-American. It just
exactly.
Whenever you have a lot of diversity, I think we're going to have the haters. And unfortunately, they get a lion's share of attention.
Right.
When stuff like that happens.
Well, we just this weekend I'm wearing this particular shirt today because we're very concerned, and Damien, you might want to express your feeling as well relating to these draconian 1890 laws that have just been passed by in Tallahassee, but in Miami Beach there was a rally on Sunday where these shirts were worn by most of the attendees, including the mayor of Miami Beach, including Miami-Dade County's mayor, including a number of commissioners. I think all the commissioners from Miami Beach, a number of commissioners from Dade County. There was other representatives from North Miami and other places really reacting to the change that's taking place and the hate speeches and the anti-humanity that's taking place that is so unnecessary and unneeded. So,
no, I agree. I mean, I think one of the ones you're referring to is it's what's been called either the family rights bill, the Florida Family Rights Bill, or the Don't Say Gay bill by either side. I think this is a good example in some ways of how we lose perspective, right? Like personally, I think this is a gubernatorial plot.
Exactly.
Just to bring some national attention and national issues and foster his base. Right. So he's feeding his base red meat at the expense really of all of us.
Yeah.
Because this doesn't help the community.
No, it's anti-humanity.
It just doesn't help the community. But then everything gets broken down that way, right?
Right.
Like one side is like, well, don't say gay. Although the bill actually doesn't say don't say gay. I mean, the problem I have with this is that a reasonable person can sit there and say, well, okay, I don't want an institution like an educational institution talking to my kids from the age of 3 to 8 about these sorts of things,
right?
Sexuality,
right?
Blah, blah, blah. But that's not what this bill does.
Right.
This bill says it's about curriculum,
right,
and making sure that curriculum specifically, it's not about sexuality,
right?
It's gender identity,
right,
and sexual orientation.
Right.
So it's pointing specifically at
Right.
the LGBTQ community,
exactly,
stigmatizing that community further, which it really doesn't need.
No, exactly.
I mean, I certainly don't need another,
No.
Label thrown on that.
No.
But what ends up happening is you have all these moderate, reasonable people,
Right.
who listen to kind of both sides and don't know what to do.
Exactly.
They kind of know that this isn't good,
right?
Because the bill doesn't really make sense,
right?
It's for the governor's,
Right.
national purposes,
right? No,
and it's just hurt schools. The fact that you can sue schools and you can sue teachers, and
right?
It just
it's
introduces,
ridiculous.
Right. So it's going to bring on a tremendous amount of resources,
right?
Energy, and pull to a nothing issue,
right?
That probably was just manufactured because
Right.
there was no compelling need,
none,
to introduce any of these
No.
things. So what I'm hoping for is that our leadership here in Miami-Dade County, because I think oftentimes Miami-Dade County gets sucked into what's happening in DC,
right?
LA, New York. And I think when it comes to diversity and inclusion, we should be leading that conversation.
Exactly.
They should be following us.
Exactly.
No,
it's true.
And so I think our moderates, I mean, we have plenty of moderates here,
Right.
We have Vince Lago, Mayor Coral Gables,
Of course.
Francis Suarez, Mayor City of Miami.
Right.
We have, Raquel Regalado on the commission, Rene Garcia on the commission. There are plenty more, right?
Right.
Once you start naming,
Yes,
I
there's
get
a
into
lot.
trouble. But
yes,
there's plenty of moderate Republicans and moderate Democrats.
right.
And, I would hope that these folks would step to the plate and
Right.
raise their voices,
Right.
and just express how this just needs to go away. Really.
Right. We're very fortunate in Miami that we have, so many moderates and so many. I was at a luncheon the other day where 4 of our, and you were there as well, 4 of our mayors were saying there are Democrats and Republicans here, but we all work together. We human issues are our issues, and we all agree on them. So I think that's so important, and I'm glad that those kinds of things are happening. But you're right. We need to have, we need to have these folks standing together and saying through, and it's starting, is that there are these companies that will not do events in states that have this kind of anti-humanity, and I'm going to call it that, bills. And so therefore, when they have a conference or a convention, they don't want to bring the business here. So a couple of them have already canceled because they want to go to other more welcoming cities, and that's going to happen throughout the state of Florida. So that's another backlash to these draconian laws that make absolutely no sense, but really showcase our state as being anti-humanity. So there's a lot of problems that these laws are creating and making it more difficult for working class people, because once those conventions go, gas stations, restaurants, hotel businesses are not going to benefit anymore, and it's going to be very difficult on our working class. So that's a big negative as well.
George, you've been here a long time, and I know I have too. But what I will say about that is what we see today with basically a governor who is a puppet master,
right?
Of the party, pretty much can do whatever he wants, pretty much,
right?
And what we're seeing in terms of the polarization of political parties at the local level, this never happened before.
No,
not in the history. I mean, I don't ever, remember caring about whose party was your commissioner, or,
right?
And
no, we in Miami, what's different than a lot of other cities is a lot of people running for office don't declare a party. Right. So you're not supposed to know. Not supposed to know, but it's not highlighted. It's not never. I mean, I lived in Miami Beach for 30 years, and people ran for office, and I didn't know if they were Republican or Democrat. I never knew, because it wasn't necessary to declare that. But now people, know, because the way that they deal with these issues, and some of them, are. One of the folks running for office is saying that being gay could be reversed. and she's running for office. You know?
She said it's not permanent.
Yeah, it's not permanent.
I don't know what she meant by that.
I don't either. But it's just that we have but on a bit of a brighter note, what's happened to our community, which has been joyous, is that 20 years ago we started a gay pride event, and we started highlighting and showcasing and celebrating the diversity in our communities. And in Miami Beach, as well as other places throughout Florida, we now have these wonderful events. I know that April 3rd, the All Souls Church in Miami Beach on 41st Street is having a diversity mass and bringing everyone together to celebrate through God's love. That's just one, but there's other Jewish.
And when is Pride this year, by the way?
Yeah, it starts
in April, right?
Right. It's in April. It's that week. Yeah. And it's going to be, you know, we started that, as I say, about 20 years ago, not really knowing we would get the amount of support that we got. And I was on that original committee, and we thought we'd get 7,000 or 8,000 people. And the first year we got almost 40,000. And so now it's raised to almost 100,000. So we get, you know, with Gay 8 as one, Gay Ocho, and some of these other events, Winter Party, White Party, Aqua Girl, Gay and Lesbian Film Festival, we get so many ways that we can celebrate diversity, highlight diversity. And so on a brighter note, there are these wonderful things that happen that are so supportive to our confidence, to our well-being.
Well, and on a brighter note, I mean, we've made huge advances in all the basic benefits and protections.
Exactly.
You know, and anti-discrimination ordinances.
Right.
I mean, we basically have, from a legislative point of view, achieved that kind of, you know, equality, so to speak. But you can't legislate the way people feel.
No.
And that's then that's the rest that we have to deal with.
Right.
You know?
But through some of these, you know, like Gay Ocho and other things, Palante, Your Beautiful Dinner, you know, people begin to look maybe differently and realize, you know, we're all the same. We all have the same interests. And
before I forget, I have to ask you this question. A lot of people don't understand pride.
Right.
So why pride?
Well, I will tell you from my perspective. So I worked in Miami Beach for all those years, and I worked on a number of events. I mentioned a few: Winter Party, which is a big event in March, White Party, which is an AIDS fundraiser that's held in November, Aqua Girl for women, and the list goes on and on. There's a Gay Lesbian Film Festival. So when I sat on this board and people were talking about having a Pride event, I was like, we have 10 events. What do we need one more event for? I didn't see the value. I did not. And I thought, let's not overwork these volunteers. They're all working on these other events. And then people came up to me and sensitized me and say, but that's for tourists. We have no celebration of ourselves. And so what we really want to have is something for us. And it was really mind-blowing for me, because I was down this road and then I realized I should be on this road. I mean, I was working to make it happen, but I just wasn't convinced that we needed or committed. But so many people, and then, that's it.
I think it's also that, you know, if you're comfortable and you've been comfortable for many years in your skin in that way, you kind of view it like, well, I don't really need a pride, you know? Even though, but for all the majority of people who are uncomfortable or don't understand the normalcy of it all. You know, how boring LGBTQ can be.
Well, they're not welcomed in their communities. They've not had the opportunity to, as we use the expression, come out. And so you're
still dealing with large suicide rates. You're still dealing with a lot of adverse effects for youth, for older, you know, people, for everything. So it is, I do think pride.
It's more than necessary. It's just so important. And
it's a medicine. I don't want to say medicine, but I guess in some ways it's curative.
It is. And people can be themselves that at least that day and meet other people. They hear about organizations.
For my straight friends, they used to say, but you know, I don't understand. We're like, why, Brian? I say, well, you don't understand because that isn't your experience. You haven't gone down that path, you know, but if you were down that path, you'd realize it's a harder path.
So let's just take it. I'm getting goosebumps when I think about this. So let's talk about St. Patrick's Day. I'm Irish. So I grew up in Hartford, Connecticut, and the Irish were the trash of the era. The Italians were a higher level, And so there was no way for them to advance. And so to feel some pride and some confidence, they started celebrating St. Patrick's Day. And so now all around the country, I mean, that's been lost because people do not. When my parents married, my mother was Italian, my father was Irish, that was looked down upon. The Italians did not marry the Irish.
Your dad was Italian with the name Neary?
No. My father was Irish. My mother was Italian.
Yeah.
No. So, but that was not condoned. It was really tough for them. I mean, we don't even know it now, and it's just 50 or 60 years ago. But St. Patrick's Day is a day for Irish pride. So it's no different in a way.
That's a great example.
Yeah. And I mean, if you pick the big Italian festival in New York City, San Gimignano, it's another day of Italian pride, but we don't think of it because they've been internalized for 50 years. It's now just an event that we go to and have Irish or Italian or Greek food. But in its day, it was created to give people a sense of pride and confidence.
Sure.
And it's no different with gay pride.
And where did you grow up?
Hartford, Connecticut.
In Hartford, Connecticut. Yeah. And so a little bit about you. How did you end up in Miami?
Well, so I mentioned and went to school in Connecticut. I joined the Peace Corps and I lived in the Caribbean for a few years on a little island named St. Vincent before anyone ever heard of it. Near Grenada in Barbados, I taught school. And then I moved to New York City, and then you begin the connection with Miami and Miami Beach. If you're from Hartford, you look at Cape Cod, you look at Block Island and Rhode Island. But if you're in New York, believe it or not, you're looking at Fire Island and those places. But also, they look at Miami and Miami Beach as the sixth borough.
Yeah.
And so there were so many New Yorkers that were here, and I used to hear about it. And then a friend of mine bought a building on 25th Street in Miami Beach, and I was a little disenchanted with New York City. So I came down, and the rest is history. I moved here in 1991 and started volunteering for the Miami Design Preservation League in Miami Beach, and following in a woman named Barbara Kappenman's footsteps, or pumps, as I say. And little by little, we created what South Beach is called today, the Art Deco District. And
you've been pivotal in all of that. I mean, as a person, a volunteer, an activist, I mean, I can't think of all those issues without your name.
Well, thank you. And also what I want to say is, where gay people come in like us, is we see things differently. And, a lot of people just want to knock buildings down and put high rises and make money. We see the important, the artistic, the value, the beauty, the handmade, the frieze work. And because of all that, we then try to introduce that to other people. So they began to look at buildings differently as part of our history and culture. And so little by little, historic districts, not only in Miami Beach, but in Miami, we have some beautiful historic districts in Miami. We have beautiful districts throughout Florida, throughout the United States. It's part of our culture and history. We want to hold on to that. So Miami Beach is a small microcosm of what took place then and what's happening now. It's very up to the moment. It's very current, with new hotels being renovated. They have the Lenox Hotel, which is a historic hotel from the 1920s.
The DeVille was just torn down.
Yeah, the DeVille. Yeah, very sad. They let it do that because the land is worth more than the construction. So once that's down, they can sell it for millions.
I'm in Morningside, so we're challenged right and left. With all of those issues.
Right. Yeah, beautiful. Morningside is a gorgeous community. So you're very familiar with history and culture, and so many people that because you've lived there a while play an important role, not only in Morningside, but in some of the other communities to highlight, Miami's history. And for those people that don't know, one little factoid, Miami means sweet water. It's a Native American term. So
I have no idea.
Yeah, that's what it means.
Can you believe that?
It means sweet water.
That's what it meant.
And we have all our municipalities. One of our municipalities is called Sweetwater. Yeah. So there's a little fact about Miami you can remember.
But was it because the water was sweet?
Yes. Okay. I mean, that's what the Native Americans called it. It was sweet water. So we're very fortunate to have had that historic name. And then, of course, La Playa as well, Miami Beach. So, but anyway, a little fact that you could carry away. If you forget about me and Damien, you remember Miami, Sweetwater.
No, that's a great one. That's a great factoid.
Well, what I do now is I do a lot of tours, and I like to highlight so much.
Tell us a little bit about that. You lead the tours, so it's a business.
Yes. I used to do that all the time, and then I retired. I mean, I did it for the Convention Bureau. Everywhere I worked, I did tours. And then, people that come here want to bring a convention or a meeting, they like to know where they're bringing it.
Yeah.
And so I would be the one that would close the deal. I remember that once in my office when I was working, all the higher ups, if you will, came to my office and I was looking at them all like, what's going on? And they said, Microsoft for the first time in their history is bringing all 14,000 employees to a conference, but they won't come unless they have your tour. So they said, we're not, it's true. They weren't allowed to come, Bill Talbot or any of those. It was just me and their 7 staff people. And we closed the deal because they heard about so much of Miami is activism. So much about Miami and how we save things and how we highlight things is through the volunteerism, because it's part of America. Not only the Art Deco district, but the colors, someone premiered that, and the list goes on and on. And so Little Havana, holding on to so much of in Little Havana, that's important. Little Haiti, so much of what is there is important. And it's people like yourself who have a sense of value of our history and culture and want to hold on to it.
Well, I think Miami's always been a place where multiculturalism is welcomed.
Yes.
It is and it isn't.
Yeah.
It's part of the rub of the diversity that we fight all the time.
Yeah.
You walked in the store, they didn't speak my language.
Right.
Like that whole interaction.
Right.
Why don't they learn English?
Right. Yes, exactly. I had it today. I was at a restaurant and that happened. And someone said to her, and then she spoke some more English.
Personally, I was very hopeful because I'm a big Star Trek person.
Right.
So I was watching Picard and I was blown away that in the episode, the opening, a character spoke fully in Spanish the entire time. Fully. And it was subtitled.
Oh.
So I'm like, wow, that's great. Just because sometimes I think we don't realize how difficult it is for people to.
We don't.
And we do take it like, why don't they just, you
Right.
know, it's a disrespect. It's a respect issue. You're in
Right.
this country, you got to respect, you know, and it's really not.
Right.
Like most of the people I know who don't manage it, you know, 100%, they're not proficient.
Right.
They're embarrassed about it.
Exactly.
They know they can't get to the next level
Right.
without it.
And they're
They
shy
don't
and
need
timid.
anybody telling them.
Yes.
you
On
know?
top of that.
And they're shy, you know.
No, they are.
So it's kind of like they're living a little hell with that issue,
Yeah.
you know. And my heart just goes out to them because I know how they really feel, and I know it's hard. I mean, whether you're leaving Ukraine or a lot of these folks did that same move, they left for those same reasons, and you know, having to have a different culture. A friend of mine just recently still hasn't managed English, has only been here a couple of years, but feels horrible about it.
Right.
I said, Damien, you don't know. I wake up every morning with anxiety. I only sleep like 3 or 4 hours a day. And I feel like I'm walking in a world that isn't mine.
Exactly.
You know,
that's a good way of putting it.
Yeah, I left my home, my career, my family. That's what I'm worried about. That's where my mind is at.
Right.
And, you know, here I am,
Right.
you know, with high anxiety and feeling like I need therapy.
And you can't move forward because you're not going to, if jobs or different positions you want to apply for, or you can't because you haven't mastered some of those skills. It's very tough.
Right. I think multiculturalism definitely is something that the more people have their websites with the, you know, translate option, which is not hard to get, but I'm always shocked at how few websites have it. The more we embrace that, the better a city like Miami will be. Especially a city like Miami, because we thrive on that.
No, we do.
Thrive in that space.
And what's joyous before we close is that, you know, any night of the week you could say, I think I'll have Nicaraguan food. Oh, tonight I think I'll have El Salvadoran pupusas. Oh, I think I'll go have paella. Oh, so on the culinary scale, we're so fortunate that we have a plethora of places and that really can feed our need.
And we also understand that different cultures raise their kids differently.
Exactly.
Have different priorities, have different values. And I think when you start understanding that, you're less likely to judge other groups of people by your values, by your priorities, etc. So I do want to say, if people want a tour or they want to reach your business, how can they reach it?
Tours are us, GeorgeNeary.com. Easy.
So George with a G.
Yeah.
NEARY.com.
Right. And then you just send me an email. It'll have all the tours that are offered. And I'm happy to help anybody out. I've done a lot of students. It's important for kids to know about our history, our culture, not only, Overtown and Little Havana and, all of our communities. I mean, most people don't know the oldest performance space in all of the Southeast United States is in Overtown, and it's the Lyric Theater, built in 1913. So we just have so many. The oldest building in the Western Hemisphere is in North Miami, the ancient Spanish monastery. We have lots for people to see. So if you want to wet your whistle, go on my website and I'll be happy to do a tour for you.
And last question for you, just curiosity, especially from your vantage point with your background and the way you've gone through Miami since the 90s. If you had a magic wand and you got to change something about Miami, what would that be?
Well, I would get a long wand and change things in Tallahassee, because that would affect Miami greatly. So I would say if I could, educate the governor, it's like the bells of St. Mary's, in that movie with the nuns, with Ingrid Bergman and Bing Crosby. One day, the rich man next door wakes up and he wants to donate the space so they can make, a St. Mary's grammar school. Well, one day I'd like him to wake up after being hit with the magic wand and realize he wants to be more inclusive and be more diverse and be more human.
And I'm hopeful that the politicians here in Miami-Dade County, especially the Republican politicians, can pull away, raise their voices. Miami-Dade is an enormous, important county in the state of Florida.
Of course.
And assert their power.
Exactly.
And kind of call Tallahassee
Knock on wood.
Knock on wood,
yes.
right?
Yes.
We can only hope. We can only
Fingers crossed.
And on your tours, they can always find you because you'll be shining.
I will. I'll always wear my hat.
You always have a hat of some kind of these. George, what a pleasure spending this time with you.
Great.
I really enjoyed it. And for all of you out there, I hope you come back next week. Stay tuned to the show and see you next week.
Thank you.